How's it going, guys?
Alright, we're in Savannah, Georgia. Savannah, Georgia?
Occupy Savannah, yeah.
Occupy Savannah. We're speaking with Brett. He's going to explain to us about the Citizens United.
Alright, so Citizens United was a 2010 Supreme Court decision, Citizens United versus the Federal Election Commission. In this decision, the court case was originally about whether...
Look at me in the eyes. I'll just play with you.
The court case was originally about whether a documentary that was called Hillary was an electioneering communication. Electioneering communications are basically described as a video promoting a certain candidate in an election, and there's actually a law that says you can't broadcast these within a certain amount of time.
You can't, or you can?
You cannot broadcast within 30 days of an election any electioneering communication. And Citizens United claimed that it was not an electioneering communication. The FEC said it was. From this case, the Supreme Court decided that corporations are people in regards to the Constitution, and as such, we cannot limit their spending towards political advertising campaigns, which was not the issue that was even brought up in the court case, so the court extremely overreached their authority. There was an earlier decision that basically said money is a form of free speech, which is why you have the unlimited donation clause that gets added in with Citizens United. And Citizens United claimed that it was not an electioneering communication. The FEC said it was. From this case, the Supreme Court decided that corporations are people in regards to the Constitution, and as such, we cannot limit their spending towards political advertising campaigns, which was not the issue that was even brought up in the court case, so the court extremely overreached their authority. There was an earlier decision that basically said money is a form of free speech, which is why you have the unlimited donation clause that gets added in with Citizens United. This has allowed corporations to spend, forget the exact number, but I know it's around $500 million in the last election cycle. It's looking like it's going to be a lot more. I've heard Obama say he's planning to raise about $1.5 billion towards this election. So it's created a massive inflow of money into our election cycle, which steals away the power of the voice of the general public. Because, you know, I can't compete with somebody who's paying, you know, $50 million to a political candidate. My voice no longer equals theirs. So this entire notion that money is free speech is just completely ridiculous. One of the things we've been doing here on the local level in Savannah is we have been passing around petitions to get the city council to pass a resolution against the Citizens United case in support of a constitutional amendment. And the strategy behind this is we've talked with Atlanta, Augusta, and a couple others and tried to get them involved in the same petition campaign. And what we're trying to do is get counties in Georgia to call for this, to pass resolutions against Citizens United and call for an amendment to the Constitution that states corporations are not considered people, and as such, all money they donate can't be regulated.
What do you think about politics? Would you be interested in running for any type of political position?
Interesting question. I've considered it. I am an anarchist, so me running for political office is a little bit of a contradiction, but our elected officials aren't doing their jobs. Their job is to basically uphold their end of the social contract and make sure the general public is provided for. They haven't been doing this. There has been some discussion here at Occupy about running a couple of candidates for local positions. The entire school board is up for re-election, sheriff, district attorney. So we've been discussing the idea of running people
write-ins?
And take,
as write-ins?
No, actually registering with the elections board and doing the quote-unquote proper way of doing it. But running people for the school board and for a couple of the either city or county commissioner positions. One of the main reasons is with the school board, there's been a big push towards punishing the inner city schools and moving more public funding to charter schools that basically only allow certain candidates to get in. This allows all the money to be focused in one location. The inner city kids have even less money and less resources that they can use to better themselves. And these charter schools that are being put in are non-union shops. And a lot of the schools that are in town are actually union schools. They work with the American Federation of Teachers, AFT, and more specifically on the local level, the SFT, Savannah Federation of Teachers. And you know, a lot of these teachers have master's degrees, things like that, and they deserve the pay they're getting. They're very good teachers. But the way the laws are basically set up here in Georgia, and the way they're trying to change the laws too, is the teachers with low performing classes can actually be fired despite whether or not they're actually doing their job well. By taking all the good students out of inner city classes where you have the union teachers who make a decent livable wage, and focusing mainly inner city kids who've had no real educational chances, they can remove these union teachers and then replace them with people straight out of school and pay them dirt wages and make more money. It's all about the money in this country, which is disgusting.
It's all about the money. Yeah. Alright.
We were standing out here on the street. It was myself, Albert, Sandy, and a couple other members. And we were holding, one of us was holding a sign, and I don't remember who, that said stop illegal foreclosures. A member from the local Teamsters union pulled up on us and basically told us he was about to get foreclosed on, and he explained the story going behind it. The story of this guy is he signed up for a mortgage that he could afford. He had a good paying job and he was working. Unfortunately, his wife got diagnosed with cancer, and in the course of the treatment, she ended up racking up over $300,000 in medical bills. He then also got diagnosed with cancer. I'm not exactly sure why, like how the cancer was caused. I didn't get that much information from him about that. But that had happened, and then the bank was trying to kick him out of his house the week before Christmas. And it was about 2 weeks before Christmas when he came up to talk to us. And of course, we said, let us know, we will be out on your property, picket lines, tents, everything. Because the way the law works in Savannah, he can actually basically sign a sublease agreement to us. And you know, we could give him $1 and then we could be a renter on his property. So then the court has to re-go through and file paperwork to evict us as well. So we basically were like, yeah, you need us, here's our numbers, here's how to get in touch with us, let us know, we'll be out there with about 80 people. So he's up there, and his lawyer basically was trying to tell him not to leverage us, it's a bad idea. Basically his lawyer was working for the banks and trying to screw him over. But he basically was like, I'm not leaving my house, I don't care what I have to do. So the week before Christmas, a guy shows up, a bailiff shows up on the property to evict him and change the locks on the house. And he goes, he's like, what are you here for? And he's like, I'm here to change locks and kick you out. He's like, no, you're not. The bailiff was like, excuse me? And the guy was like, you're not kicking me out of my house. This is my house. I've made my payments. I'm a little bit behind because of my wife's medical bills, but I am going to keep making my payments. You're not kicking me out of this house. And he's like, oh, yes, we are. And he's like, I'll get on the phone right now, get 80 protesters and 6 news cameras to show how you guys are evicting somebody who's paid his bills responsibly for, 15 years, and you're going to kick him out the week before Christmas. Bank backed off. Bank stopped the foreclosure, they've let him keep his house, he stayed in contact with us, everything's still going well with it, he's been able to basically keep making his payments on his mortgage, and ironically enough, we never even had to move, but we had everybody ready, people lined up, ready to go in shifts, ready to lock it down, and the bank backed off because they didn't want the media fiasco.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been involved in something like that.
Your buddy was telling us a story, and he said something about the fact that 99% of all deeds are not even in possession by the bank.
That is true. Most of the banks actually, because of the way they
buy bundles.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's a policy where basically they sell like securities, insurance, and everything on mortgages, which is a complicated process I'm really not going to go into. But basically what the banks will do, and not even the banks, but the finance companies more so than the banks, is they'll get all of these mortgages and then they'll bundle them all together and then they'll sell that bundle to someone. And then that bundle will have insurance, bets, gambles placed upon it as to whether or not those mortgages will default or not. And then that is turned around, rebundled, and sold again. And this selling keeps happening back and forth. So a mortgage will go through about 30 or 40 different banks. Unless the bank can actually physically hand out the mortgage and say, this is the deed of the property, this is the mortgage you signed, and the deed that says we still own it, you have to leave. If they don't have the deed, which most banks can't figure out what happened to the deed, they can't evict you from the property. So it was actually funny because there was a congressman about, I want to say 8 years ago, who basically was addressing the House floor, and you never saw any coverage of this on the news media for obvious reasons. But she's like, my advice to anybody who's getting foreclosed on, do not leave your house. Make them force you from your house. Because if they don't have the deed and you leave, they can get that property. But if they actually do not physically have the deed in their hand, they cannot take your house from you.
Thank you, Brett. Appreciate your insight.
No problem.